Hello everyone, welcome along to Racing Weekly, a podcast and YouTube show brought to you by oddschecker in association with Bet365. Looking forward to reflecting on what we've seen over the last week or so in the sport of racing and looking ahead to the weekend especially. Steve Ryder is alongside me and Gavin Lynch is here as well. And I'm going to start the show by handing him the £10 that he won off me at golf yesterday.
Thank you, Rishi.
I'm paying up, so I saved it for everyone to see that you beat me at golf yesterday.
It's good to see you paying up. Thank you. Cheers. I think you were doing well until the rain came, so I think you're more of a Hewick. I'm more of a Royal Pagai, so I think the rain kind of upset you. But we've been asking for rain for weeks, and eventually we got it at the wrong time. At last, that's a very important point. There is rain this week. Looking ahead for the rest of the week, there are drier spells leading up to things like the Betfair Chase, etc. But at least we are getting some to get the process up and running. I see Limerick got 16 mils, and I think Thurles got 28, so plenty of rain in Ireland yesterday anyway, so that's good.
Lots of talking points from the last week, Steve, and obviously the racing marred on the weekend at Cheltenham by the 3 deaths and the subsequent use of that on ITV News and the almost blindsided the ITV racing team. It was a hard day Sunday.
Yeah, we were messaging on Sunday, and I messaged the fact that my mum even messaged me and said, 3 deaths at Cheltenham, that's so sad. And the fact that my mum has zero interest in horse racing and managed to message me around that kind of shows how far it actually went being broadcast on there. The bit that was disappointing in it, most of all, was the fact that racing didn't get a voice and the fact that it wasn't a balanced argument. We do need to look into it. These things do seem to be getting a little more frequent. Obviously, we had many clouds a few years ago, and deaths are something that will happen in horse racing, but we need to do our bit in order to look into why these are happening, whether we need more pre-race treks or anything. But some of the positives that came out of it, I thought Liam Kearns did a really good interview afterwards. He was the vet at Cheltenham that saved Ed Wolf all those years ago, if you remember. And I think that the vet at the Breeders' Cup obviously did the same with JRB. And if you have someone with that veterinary expertise that has the skills to portray that to the public, I do think it's really important to show them the process of what actually is happening. Yeah,
there is some research coming out very soon that actually quite clearly says the most trusted person in situations like that is the vet, not surprisingly, and that the more use of it, as Steve rightly says. Can I ask you both how you square a day like that as racing fans, as people who've been in the sport for such a long time? How do you deal with that?
It's unfortunate. I think, am I right in saying it was 2 heart attacks? It's a coincidence. It's very, very unfortunate. As some people say, it's outside the back door. What can you do? You just have to get on with it. And it's sad for all connections. And horses are truly loved in racing stables, but there's nothing you can do. You just have to continue on.
I mean, death is something that we all have to deal with, no matter what the arena, no matter what the industry you're involved with.
Yeah, I thought Warren Greatchecks had a brilliant quote afterwards. He said, "This sport can be the best in the world, but it can be the hardest within an instant." That kind of sums it up, really.
One other big talking point from the last week has been the David Power Jockey's Cup, I think is plural. Jockey's Cup, which has seen a significant investment from Flutter into the sport, but primarily for the jockeys, although stable staff and owner and trainers will also benefit to a lesser degree. What's your view on that?
I think it's brilliant. It's $1.5 million between now and I think the eve of the Intergrand National. It's a bit like the FedEx Cup of golf.
Yeah.
I probably shouldn't bring up golf, but
not now.
It's a bit like the FedEx Cup. I think as it goes on, it'll get a lot of interest and it'll be close to the leaderboard near the top, etc., etc. It's great prize money. Obviously, some of the owners aren't happy, and maybe 1 or 2 of the trainers that they're not getting a larger piece of the pie. But if it's $1.5 million coming into racing, I think it's great.
Yeah, I'm slightly perturbed by owners and trainers feeling that they're not getting pieces, because, I mean, the money's coming from an independent source who can do what they want with it, and if they decided to give it, it shows a lack of class, I think, to go, well, can I have that money? Well, no, we've given the money to these people because...
And just the last thing on it is, there's very few sportsmen, as Ted Walsh once said, that are followed around by an ambulance. These are the people that are on the horseback doing 30 odd miles an hour over a fence. With all due respect, the owners aren't, the trainers aren't, the jockeys are. They're the ones putting their lives in danger, so I think it's well deserved.
Yeah. What's your view, Steve?
And as far as sports people go, at the top of the league, the jockeys are one of the most underpaid out of any of them, and they are the ones putting themselves arguably the biggest risk. I thought it kind of summed up racing really, the fact that you get all this big investment of money and somehow someone wants to turn it into a negative. It is going to be quite interesting, like looking at the figures. Harry Cobden earned last season 257,000 in prize money for his rides. It could well take home £500,000 for this prize. So he's already set out his stall saying, I'd prefer to win this than the Jockeys Championship. Yeah. I imagine Sean Bowen will get that first Jockeys Championship, and it'll be interesting to see how this goes playing forward.
They're a long way behind what Ryan Moore earns every year, and he doesn't jump too many hurdles or fences anymore. So I think it's well deserved. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah, and also in comparison to other professional athletes, jockeys are underpaid. When you hear people talking about the Grand National, the Gold Cup, what do they earn? You ask people who don't know that much about racing, they ask, what do they earn when they go out there? You say a couple £100. Really? For taking part in the biggest events that you've got? So I think it's quite good for the jockeys, and I do think people complaining about it who aren't jockeys should be a little bit more perceptive about where the money's coming from and what people can do with their own money. You can't dictate to other people.
I think there was, back at the time when Ruby came down in the Mayor's Hurdle and Annie Power, I think people complained or made a comment that Ruby jumped off and stuff, which was crazy, right? So I think, am I right in saying they brought a fella in a Jeep?
Drove him at 30 mile an hour and said, go on, jump off.
Yeah, and he goes, no way. So it was funny what they did, yeah. So
excellent.
Yeah, it's a very dangerous job.
Gav, I'm going to ask you for one horse for the season ahead for us that you're most looking forward to seeing.
I'll give you one horse, but I'll give you a race to follow.
Okay.
Waterford Whispers, but I'm going to give you the Martin Pipe. It's quite an obvious one. The first 4 home were 12 lengths clear of the rest. As you saw, Better Days Ahead the other day was excellent in Navan, beating the Supreme winner. They all ran off kind of 140 to 133 that day. Waterford Whispers, Key to Bourbon and Answer to Cave, the 4 of them, they're much better than that. The Martin Pipe often brings forward a lot of good horses. So I think those 4 are worth following. But Waterford Whispers, if he ran in a handicap hurdle, he did run after Cheltenham, but we'll forgive that at Punchestown. He's got an Irish rating of 135. He's going chasing. I don't think he'll be up to graded level, but I think there'll be a big handicap to be won with him next spring or next summer.
All right. Waterford Whispers, yes, and as so often, the Martin Pipe from the festival back in March working out very well. Okay, it's time to have a look back at Racing Recap. And we start on Friday at Cheltenham. The Schlur Chase saw Jonbon win. I'll start with you here, Steve. Was he impressive enough for you, or did you consider it a satisfactory comeback?
I thought it was okay. I thought the jump at the last really won it for him. When Nico needed a big leap, when Boot Hill and Edwardstone were kind of bearing down on him, he really needed him to come up and get away from the fence quickly, and he did just that. He was pulling away at the finish, shaping like a fast run 2 miles would suit him, or that 2.5 miles that he was so impressive in the Medlin Chase at Aintree. This was 5 seconds slower than standard, so making his own running probably isn't his bag, but he got the job done. He beat Edwardstone by 9.5 lengths in this last season, beaten by a couple of lengths this year. So you could question the race as a whole. I mean, Unexpected Party is being campaigned definitely with an eye to the Grand Annual, so expect a miraculous return to form later on in the season for him. Sam Turner and I both raised doubts last week around Edwardstone on his reappearance, now getting towards the age of 10. Didn't have the greatest of reappearance records. Boot Hill, I thought, would have a similar run to Unexpected Party, to be honest, and he really impressed me with how he finished the race off. I think he was first run after a wind-up.
Yeah, and he also looked enormous in the paddock.
Yeah.
Boot Hill, he
really
plenty of condition.
Yeah, so, yeah, I like Jonbon. I'm not going to be one of these people that comes in and says that he's overrated. His record is just fantastic. 15 wins from 18 starts. He is a brilliant horse. He will get campaigned as a 2-miler, but I do think 2.5 might well be his trip.
Gav, he's a 3-1 favourite with Bet365 for the Champion Chase. Behind him in the markets, Gaelic Guerre, El Fabiolo, Energaman, Marie Nationale, Founder 50, Il Était Temps, etc.
I like your French.
Thank you. He stands alone for the British horses, and then there's a welter of Irish challengers.
I thought he was good, but only good. As you say, Steve, 15 from 18 is brilliant. His 3 defeats have come at Cheltenham. Beats Boot Hill, given it £2 by a length and a half. He's only rated 158. Jonbon's a 170. He's a brilliant horse. You'd love to own him. He was well worth the 500,000 they paid for him. He's been a revelation. I just think something will beat him in the Champion Chase. He's been beat in, well, the Supreme wouldn't worry too much about against Conhill. Was amazing on the day, but well beat in the Arkle, beat in the Clarence House. At the weekend, on Friday, his jumping was a lot better than it has been on occasion, so he jumped super. Look, he's going to be banged there, but I just think something like Gaelic Warrior might beat him. Yeah,
as admirable as he is, he's not, in previous years, where Willie's had one of the favourites for the Queen Mother, he's not unbeatable. You don't think so. You think he's vulnerable, don't you? There's 3-1 favour. The Albert Bartlett Novices Hurdle. We talked about this, of Potter's Charm and Valgrand going into this race. We talked about it on the show last week, and Potter's Charm just looks like a really exciting horse. Still very raw, though, I would say.
Yeah, he was very good. The one thing you'd say is that Harry, the new Paul Carberry Skelton, said afterwards, we'll come back to that in a few minutes, that comment, but he said afterwards that Valgrand didn't stay. He's going to end up in the county hurdle of 140. So when you beat a non-stayer, you're going to look really impressive. But he was very impressive. I see there's quotes there for the what is now the Turner's Novice Hurdle instead of the Gallagher. I'd say he'll go there. I don't think he'll go to the Albert Bartlett. There should be a ban on talking about anti-post for the Albert Bartlett until at least February, because the average price winner of the Bartlett of the last 10 years is probably 20-1 or more. Yeah. It's a very tricky race, but I think he'll end up, don't see why he can't win the Challow Hurdle. He'll probably go off favourite for that. I'm sure he'll win it. He'll go off 7 or 8-1 maybe in the Turner's Novice Hurdle. Again, he'll be banged there, but I think something else will come and do him. And certainly Valgrand would have a squeak in a county hurdle of 140.
He's 16-1 for both the Albert Bartlett and the Turner Novices Hurdle at this stage. If he does line up for the Challow, there's a possibility of Mr. Megget Québécois, one of the Skeltons. I mean, the Challow could be the best British novice hurdle that we've seen for a long time. And I quantify it as a British novice hurdle.
Yeah, and we'll get really excited that we have a top Grade 1 horse, and then we'll get thumped by the Irish, like we always do.
Plus ça change, as we say in France. What did you make of him, though? I mean, he's exciting, though, isn't he?
Yeah, we built it as a 2-horse race, and it ended up being a 1-horse race. Yeah. I thought he was really impressive. I mean, Willie Twiston-Davies must be one of your favourite people to interview. He's just absolute gold. Yeah. He then said he's adamant that his has plenty of pace. He did say the Tolworth, if it came up soft, obviously that's now the Formby at Aintree. Yeah. So he's adamant that he has enough pace for it. I think he'll end up being over the intermediate trip and will be a 3-mile chaser going forward. But yeah, was impressive. Great day for Sir Alex Ferguson with the horses that he was involved in. Yeah. Obviously, Lodesud, impressive in the Arkle trial. Spirit Dancer over in Bahrain. Il Ridoto in the Paddy Power, and he hasn't even ran Regent Stroll or Coldwell Potter yet.
Yeah. You were saying there about Willie Twiston-Davies. I was on a Cheltenham preview panel for oddschecker last March in London, and Willie Twiston-Davies was on the panel, and he's some character.
Yes, he is. Yeah. Yes, he enjoys himself. Yeah. He enjoys the winning, and he says it like it is about his horses as well. Pick up with the load of suit, shall we, from the Arkle trial on the Saturday. Arguably, we are always operating with the spectre of the Irish horses over us. So, as impressive as Lodesud was in winning that Arkle trial, did you feel it was far more telling as an Arkle trial for a British horse than in previous seasons or with previous horses that you've seen? Yeah,
I was against him. I thought Lookaway was solid coming into it, and he has absolutely destroyed him. I was really impressed. I've never been a huge kind of backer of Lodesud, but you couldn't not be impressed, really. He had good handicap hurdle form coming into last season. He's no doubt a graded chaser. San Salvador kind of caught the eye for me back in the field. He was really kind of an experienced novice, 8 runs, but he did make mistakes. Mistake at the first, not fluent in the second, hit 2 out. I mean, the way that the penalty structure of that race was against him, he was trying to concede £5 to Lodesud, who was rated £12 higher than him. So he's had 8 runs. He'll qualify as a novice, obviously, for the Grand Annual. He's rated 136. He'd get into the race. He caught my eye kind of from back in the field. But yeah, I was impressed with Lodesud, but I have had a bet in the Arkle come this weekend, and it wasn't on him. Okay.
Well, Ballyburn's the 9-4 favourite for the Arkle. Do we have any indication where Ballyburn's going yet?
I would say he'll go chasing, yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Sir Gino 5-1. I think that is the plan for Sir Gino, that he is going chasing. Firefox 11-2, and then you have to go to 11-1 for Lodesud. Is that a fair price? Is it too short?
Yeah, I think it's fair. I suppose after his hurling campaign, I think he was 0 from 7. He was second in the county off 135. So you're thinking, is he a bridle merchant, and also is he going to be a Grade 1 horse? He's now 2 from 2. He was very good at Stratford, except for maybe one mistake at the first ditch, the 4th. He was brilliant on Saturday. He wins by 11 lengths. You need to get up to at least 155, very close to 160 possibly this year if you're going to win the Arkle. His jumping is electric. Even at the last, he wasn't brilliant at it, but he was quick away from it. I think he gained something like 16 lengths on his enemies on Saturday, and he was excellent. Would I back him for the Arkle? I probably prefer a horse like In the Pocket at a similar price. He's 10 to 1, so I think he's where I'd be looking. But Lotus Sud, yeah, is again, like we've said about some of the others, going to be banged there, but I still think one or two might beat him.
And with Lotus Sud, with Potter's Charm, we're talking about these horses and how well they've done in their races here in Britain, but obviously the context of the Irish Challenge keeps bringing us back to reality, and the same sort of comments apply to the Triumph Hurdle and East India Dock, who bolted up.
Yeah.
For a trainer who is flying, and we'll talk more about him, no doubt, James Owen. But East India Dock, were you impressed?
There'll be a lot of interest in the other horse that he says is better, but anyway, I can't have that. East India Dock for me was, if I had to pick one horse from the last 4 or 5 days that has a massive, massive chance at Cheltenham, it's probably him. Like his half brother last year wasn't a good jumper, was more of a 1.5 mile horse, wins the Greatwood at the weekend, but this guy has speed. He's got loads of stamina, as he showed in the flat over 2 miles. His jumping was electric. Good. He gained 10 lengths against the rest of the field on Saturday. The time was very, very fast, 3:53. I think the bumper was running around 4 minutes. Now, one thing I'd never do is compare times on a different day, but just hear me out on this one, is the times on Friday and Sunday were around 4 minutes as well. Now, there was no rain, so you could maybe loosely kind of think about that one, but it was a very fast time for a young horse. To me, the horse who was second, Static, is 125, beats at 18 lengths, pulling up. He's definitely gone above a 140 level, and if you're at that level now, that's very close to being a Triumph Hurdle winner. So again, like we said earlier, he's going to be banged there, but I think at 7 or 8 to 1, I wouldn't stop you backing him now. I think he's got a big, big chance.
All right. His stable companion, Lavender Hill Mob, that James has also spoken about, is 20 to 1. How impressed were you with East India Dock, Steve?
Yeah, this feels like we've rewound a year. We had Johnny Ward on this show, and he said, "Yep, I'm definitely back to Burdett Road," and I was kind of against him and said, "I'll just wait for the Irish to come out," and it's the same again. Yeah. The Irishmen are going for the British juvenile hurdlers. I was impressed. I was really happy for Sam Twiston-Davies. I love him as a jockey, and the fact that James Owen's kind of gone for him for availability on these juvenile hurdles to keep him within the rides for the season is a nice story going forward. I just think you've got to wait for Christmas for the DRF to see what Willie, Gordon and Joseph O'Brien bring out before you're taking something like 7 to 1. Pre-race, if he was 25, 20 to 1, I could understand it, but 7 to 1 seems a bit skinny.
I think of the ones we mentioned so far, Jonbon, Potter's Charm, Lotus Sud and this guy, if I had to back one of those with a free bet, he's the one of those 4 that I'd back.
Would you agree with that? That of the 4...
Which of the 4 would you back?
Talking about winning at the Cheltenham Festival.
I'd probably back Jonbon if I was honest. Okay. Just because of, you know what you're getting with him, and you know the opposition. Whereas here, all you've got to do is look back. 6 of the first 7 home in the Triumph last year were all trained by the Irish. Obviously, that was aided by the fact that Burdett Road and Sergino both missed the race, but that kind of sums it up.
All right.
Sergino would have been banged there, I would say, definitely.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Yeah. The Paddy Power Gold Cup was won by Il Ridoto, who floated around. I thought it was a beautiful ride, obviously, from Freddie Gingell. Couple of disappointments in behind. Overall view on the performance?
I thought it was a good race going into it. I thought you had Protector Rat, who obviously was the class horse in the race, and I thought you had a few unexposed, like Imagine and Ginny's Destiny, who could have made into graded chases later in the season, who both disappointed. The case was pretty easy to make for Il Ridoto. He placed efforts off 140, 144, 143 and 148 and had a win off 138. So off 144 he was entitled to do it, and he had obviously had that reappearance run at Chepstow. The handicapper has rated him £11 this morning. So yeah, I think he'll probably struggle for the remainder of the season. Obviously with Freddie Gingell's £3 off that, I mean that £3 is an absolute steal at the minute. He rode a treble yesterday at Exeter as well. He's a jockey going places. He's one of these ones that as soon as they lose their claim, they're still going to be able to progress through in there. I thought Garlaw ran well at the end of the race, was catching the eye, staying on in second. Let's Go Champ ran well.
Your selection?
Yeah,
it did run well.
I was getting quite excited on the bend, and then Il Ridoto
jumped super, didn't he?
Yeah, it jumped really, really well. Il Ridoto was too strong up the hill at the finish. The real eye catcher for me, and I've been drawn in again, is Fugitive. Yeah, I really, really like this horse. He's huge. He made a few mistakes on the way round, which isn't normally him. Looked a bit outpaced, came back into it and popped back onto the bridle, and again kind of weakened. He is a huge horse. and will have needed his reappearance run. And the fact that he drifted out to 28-1 SP kind of shows, I wasn't there, but he probably needed that from the paddock with the way that the market went. I've checked, the handicapper has dropped him £2 for finishing 5th. Okay. That brings him down to a mark of 150. He won the December Gold Cup off 151 last year. And yeah, as long as the bookmakers don't go mad on him, I'll definitely be backing him for the December Gold Cup.
A good case for that horse. Ginny's Destiny, Paul Nicholls wasn't giving up on him, obviously, because he'd disappointed last season, first time up. And he seemed to be convinced that he desperately needed the run.
Yeah, you'd imagine though if he was, needed the run and he wasn't fully fit, he'd finish 5th or, he'd be beaten 10 lengths. There's more than just fitness there to run that poorly. Going back to Il Ridoto, last 5 runs at Cheltenham carried 10-5, 10-9, 11-6, 11-9 and 11-3, and at the weekend only carried 9 stone 13, so I'd say that played a big part.
Thanks to Protectorate.
Yes, and what I would say is, for me, one of the biggest eye catches of the weekend was Madara in this.
Yeah.
Finished 4th. Dan Skelton only ran a couple of weeks ago for a different trainer. First run for Dan. Stepping up in trip, was a 2-miler last season, even won at the DRF, for example, at Leopardstown. And I think Madara, 4th year off 140, could end up maybe in the plate or something like that in March, 2.5 miles, 2 mile 5. And for me, that was definitely an eye catcher.
Yeah, he ran really well. And Dan Skelton said before the race that he could barely remember the horse's name. It'd been that close to getting him. The Greatwood Hurdle took place on Sunday. Burdett Road won, and he is now around 33-1 Bet365 for the champion hurdle. He beat Be Aware and Dysart Enos. I thought both horses in behind ran really well. But Burdett Road, I think the story about it was the positive ride he was given, the fact he responded, and even though I thought Be Aware came to him, I thought he pulled out more. It looked like he was doing his own thing in front.
A brilliant performance for a 4-year-old carrying 11 stone 10 to win. Any Greatwood, you need a very good horse, but talk of the champion hurdle seems crazy to me. I presume he'll go up to about 140. In this day and age, it looks like being a very strong champion hurdle. If they're all there, he needs to get near to 170. So for me, he's 2 stone off, and I can't see him making up that gap. So 33-1, he should be 50-1. Be Aware ran a cracker, stayed on very strongly. Harry, the new Paul Carberry Skelton, out the back, held up. Yeah. I used to, tease about Harry getting there way too soon, a lot of horses, but as he showed in the bumper on Sunday, he's changed, and it's amazing, more maybe than any other sports people, when jockeys get ride winners, their confidence grows and grows, and they can become a top-class jockey, and Harry has become that. So Be Aware for me, flashed home, really good run, and you'd have to say he'd have a chance in the county hurdle.
Yep. Okay, I thought Dysart Enos was really keen through the race. Watching Johnny Burke's hands all the way, obviously, with a very close eye. No point did he ever drop his hands on her withers. They were always up here, just doing a little bit too much. But I'm really encouraged by the run. I think the first 3 are all horses that can win in the right company again this season.
Definitely. The preview was correct, wasn't it? Burdett Road and Dysart Enos, you thought they had a few pounds in hand ahead of the handicapper, and so it transpired. Like you said, Dysart Enos just a bit too keen, 294 days off the track. Yeah. She was entitled to be like that, and she'll step forward. She's definitely got races in her this year. Be Aware, again, caught the eye. His campaign is going to be mapped out, isn't it? It's going to be that valuable 2 mile handicap hurdle at Ascot, the Betfair hurdle, county hurdle. Yeah. He's going to be obvious going through, and you wouldn't bet against him in any of those. And yeah, I thought Tin 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 ran well for Sam Turner at a big price as well. Ran on to finish 4th.
Yep. Yeah, Sam gave that horse a good mention. Okay, was there anything else? I'll go with you for anything UK based in particular, and then leave if there's anything Irish at the end, but primarily focus on the UK races.
I thought Springwell Bay caught the eye behind Highland in that 3 mile listed novice chase. This was 28 seconds slower than standard. They were a real cruel. Springwell Bay takes a keen hold in his races. I thought that 2.5 mile novice handicap chase at the Cheltenham Festival would suit him down to the ground. He's rated 145. Fast run pace in that would help him settle rather than running over a slowly ran 3 miles. I was impressed with Peaky Boy. It looked a strong novices limited handicap chase. He won that off of 132, conceding chasing experience to Primoz and Guard Your Dreams. I thought Nico was brilliant on him, kind of asked him to go long, short, everything. The horse just responded to him that way.
And rode him down the inside as well, which was quite brave on a horse first time ever.
His really likely race. He's now won 5 out of 6 in his career. His only defeat came in a bumper. He now looks like a 3 miler, so that's not exactly a bad thing on his CV, the fact that he was beaten in a bumper. we're yet to see the likes of Dancing City, Stella Story, Caldwell Potter and the Jukebox Man over fences. But I was really impressed with that. And bookies get a lot of stick for cutting horses after winning poor novice races. But I thought the 33-1 that Bet365 had him for the Brown Advisory was quite a big price. I know he obviously has about a stone to find, but he is a horse that could keep progressing through the season.
Okay. Anything else UK based? I'll give a mention to Sam for giving Doyen Quest. He put that. I think he might have put the runner up as well. Gowell Road as his 2 horses to follow in that race.
Yeah, I did like Doyen Quest. It's worth watching it back because he looks like a comfortable winner at the finish, but he makes a really, really bad mistake at the second.
How he stood up.
Amazing. The handicappers put him up £10. He is going to run on Saturday under a £5 penalty, so he'll be £5 willing, which we'll obviously get on to later in the show. But yeah, he was impressive.
Okay. Focusing primarily on Ireland, but also anything that you saw?
The 2 I was going to say from Cheltenham was Doyen Quest was one that you just mentioned off 125. The thing that surprised me the most was, considering a lot of people are very much into Cheltenham, is I'm surprised they didn't go for a Pertemps qualifier of 125, win that and get into the final of 135, but they decided to go for a Saturday race plus the 100 grand race next weekend.
David Power Jockey's Cup. So.
Yeah, so he was very impressive. And Hamsian wins the handicap hurdle over 2.5 off 111, very good flat horse, and he'll now go up to say £10, £9 to 120. He'll have to win again, plus get the VAT coming over. So if he gets in off 130 odd in the Coral Cup, or more likely perhaps the Martin Pipe, Hamsian is definitely one to keep in mind for March. Yeah.
Okay, and from say Navan or anything else in Ireland from the week, there's some good racing. Home by the Lee managed to bounce back to form, beat dear old Bob Ollinger, who I thought ran well in defeat. And Gordon Elliott continuing to rack up win after win after win. I mean, he's got some good horses, good stable.
Brilliant, yeah. He's had a fantastic start of the season. He had 8 winners in Down Royal at the 2-day festival, and he had 8 winners in Navan at the weekend of the 2-day festival. So he's going really well. Home by the Lee last year had to give Bob Ollinger £9. This time was getting 5, so it was a stone better, but I still didn't think he'd be good enough to beat Bob Ollinger. Blue Devassi was excellent for Gordon, travelled brilliant, loved the go ground. Mr. Percy ran a nice race in second. Things didn't go perfect for him in the race, so he'll win races. But Blue Devassi was very good. He probably won't go to the Royal Bond. Romeo Coolio, I think Gordon has for that. But you'd have to say he was very impressive,
Yeah, and Better Days Ahead beat Slade Steel, 2 festival winners. That was quite smart as well. Gordon Elliott won the Troy Town for the 100th time with Stuzzicchini, and American Mike was disappointing in that race. Checked out quite tamely, having travelled well. And the other big news from the weekend, Il est Français, beaten in France, and I think it's transpired that he has bled, or there was there might have been a slightly more elongated way of saying it, but the upshot is he has bled, and there's a doubt whether he even turns up for the King George.
Yeah, I didn't see the race, but I see he pulled up, so you couldn't have him for the King George. Stuzzicchini, just to go back to him for a second, that was his 11th run this season, which is incredible, isn't it? And he won this off 131. I think he's gone up £10 to 141. He's a novice, so he might end up in the 3 mile 6 novice handicap chase that used to be the National Hunt Chase. Okay. And I'm not saying he'd win it, but he'd have a squeak because he would stay forever, yeah.
All right. And for some of the horses who didn't appear in the entries for the King George, Il est Français beaten, we might be talking about them when we talk about the John Durkan later in the show. That has been this week's Racing Recap. This week, Bet365 are supporting Safer Gambling Week, which is a national cross-industry initiative to raise awareness of safer gambling. Visit safegamblinguk.org for more information. And before we get into our weekend meeting preview, just to let you know that our sponsor, Bet365, have a best odds guaranteed offer. It's available every single UK and Irish race from 8 a.m. on the day of the race. If you take a price and the SP is bigger, Bet365 will pay you at the bigger odds. Full T's and C's can be found on the website. I feel like those old newsreaders. So at the end of it, you move the paper and you just shuffle it like that. Well, nowadays, obviously, there's lots of auto cue. Never used auto cue, but I imagine that's what they do.
You're too young.
Let's look ahead to the big race on Saturday at Haydock, the Betfair Chase. Grey Dawning heads the market for that, and understandably so. The stable are flying, and he was a very smart novice. He's 15-8 with Bet365. Ahoy Senor, 5-1. Capodanno supplemented for the race, 6s. Royal Pagaille, last year's winner, 6s. Hewick, 13-2. Brave Man's Game, 8. Gold Tweet, 12-1 and 14-1, bar those. Steve, I'll let you open up on this. Grey Dawning, is he the best hope that we have in Britain of a Gold Cup horse?
I think so, but I do think he might be vulnerable on his reappearance. This race has kind of changed complexion slightly. Corbett's Cross and L'Empresse not declared, Capodanno then supplemented in. You can understand why bookmakers have kind of pushed him out slightly to 15-8. Dan Skelton's said that he's got a lot of work into Grey Dawning, but there's nothing like a race to bring a horse on. You look back at Ginny's Destiny, Paul Nicholls, yes, I've got him fit enough, and then as soon as they're beaten, I think he might have needed the race. If you look back at his reappearance record, he's been beaten on his last two reappearance runs. He was beaten by a rival that's rated only 124 over hurdles 2 years ago. And then granted, last year was beaten by Stay Away Faye in a novice chase. But he was still beaten by horses who you think that he is now better than. If you look strictly on official ratings, he has £12 to find with a Hoy Signor. That rival has a benefit of a reappearance run under his belt, an eye-catching reappearance run at that. Staying on well over 2.5 miles in the Old Roan. This step up to 3 miles shouldn't be an issue. We know that he loves Aintree, but Haydock shouldn't really be against him. And if they don't get a huge amount of rain, I would like a Hoy Signor. I looked into Capodanno. His best performance came in the Cotswold Chase, but if you look back at his reappearance record, it's ropey. He was beaten by Janadil 2 years ago by 10 lengths. Last year was 6th of 6th behind Classic Getaway, beaten 26 lengths. And Willie Mullins, we know that they progressed throughout the whole season. I'd be against Capodanno. I don't particularly follow French racing. I looked into Gold Tweet because he obviously was impressive winning the Cleve a couple of years ago, wasn't he? But he was beaten miles by Ile Francais, and then the horse that he was beaten by last time was third in that race that Ile Francais got beaten in on Sunday. So that form doesn't really look up to it. The one that I liked at prices, and she has annoyingly been backed this morning, was Limerick Lace. She was 25. She's now into about 14 to 1, I think. Now, she beat Dino Blue in the Mare's Chase last season. Dino Blue probably wanted the better of the ground. Limerick Lace wanted the heavier of the ground, and it came in Limerick Lace's favour. But if you look at it, she has form over 3 miles. She finished runner-up to Cocoa Beach in the Troy Town. She also won by 16 lengths on her reappearance last season. Now, often with the JP McManus horses, you need to look at what the end goal is. But there are going to be loads of graded Mare's Chases that she can mop up through the season. So the fact they're not going to look after her handicap mark for something later on in the season means that if she does come here and there is plenty of rain, then I think she'd outrun her odds. The fact that they've supplemented Capodanno slightly questions whether she's going to turn up. But if she turns up and it's soft ground, I'd be with Limerick Lace. If there's less of the rain around, I'd be with Hoy Signor.
Interesting. All right, Limerick Lace, 14 to 1. Hoy Signor 5 to 1. Grey Dawning, the 15 to 8 favourite. Gavin, how do you see it?
Just to go back there to Limerick Lace, 4 of her brothers loved a bit of a trip, that's for sure. Spades or trumps. I like the way you're thinking. I know the way you're thinking and my way of thinking. So that's they all appreciate it.
What are you thinking?
I'm thinking that I can't see myself having a bet in the race, but I'd have to wait and see what the ground is. There's talk of a lot of rain coming maybe Friday or Saturday, but does that come or not? It's too far to say if it's, what the ground's going to be. Yeah. So I think the ground's going to play a massive part. I accept what Steve says about Grey Dawning's first time back record. 15 to 8 seems a bit short based on ratings, etc. I'd no issue with a Hoy Signor's reappearance in Aintree. A lot of people were complaining about the ride that Derek Fox gave it. But if you look at a Hoy Signor's previous record, first time back, it's never very good. So they must have been absolutely ecstatic with the run in Aintree. And if you're Derek Fox and you hit the horse 10 times to get it up in a photo finish, if you were the owner, you wouldn't be overly impressed. So I have no issue with that ride whatsoever. And he's an excellent horse. He loves Aintree, as we know. And as you say, Haydock should be similar enough. It's tight left-handed. It's flat. I think Hoy Signor maybe each way 5 to 1. But you'd have to wait and see what the ground is, because Hewick obviously wants good ground. And last year's winner, Royal Pagaille, would love a ploughed field. So.
Yeah. The French horse, Gold Tweet, the trainer said on the weekend, he said, I only come to win. And it has sort of been borne out by his record. He's only had 3 runners, 2 have won. The other was obviously Gold Tweet going for the Stayers hurdle. So the fact that this race has been in mind for some time sort of leads me to thinking that there are, you've pointed out, enough question marks about some of the horses at the top of the market, etc. Hoy Signor, as good as that comeback run, he's more than liable to do something ridiculous along the way.
He's a bit mad.
Yeah, just by the process of eliminating horses here and there. might have a go at Gold Tweet. But like Gavin, not a strong view at all on the Betfair Chase at this stage. The Stayers Handicap Hurdle on the same card. There's already been a bit of chat about it because Doyen Quest is the market leader for 3-1 for the Skelton team. We've also got Catchem Derry at 8s. They've got Gwenny May Boy at 9s. I think they've also got Punta del Este entered in the race. There are a few different entries floating about for these horses. But Doyen Quest was pretty impressive. As we talked about, he nearly stepped at that hurdle early on. And Dan Skelton was pretty keen that this was a serious possibility for him. He did also mention that if he were to run, Harry wouldn't ride him, and that they would probably look. This is what he told me on the weekend. If he did go to Haydock, Harry wouldn't ride, and they'd look to claim.
Okay, I ended up back in Doyen Quest maybe an hour after he won at the weekend when Dan said he was going for this race. So I think he's got a massive chance. He's £5 well in, as we said. He's going to be run off 130. He was very, very impressive even with that mistake. I'm definitely going to have a saver on Shoot First if he appears. I haven't backed him yet because I don't want to back him in case he doesn't show up, because that's just a waste of money. So if he does appear, and even if he's a shorter price than he is now, he had a very, very eye-catching run in Galway. The stewards had a chat. He'd been off a long time. I had backed him to win the Pertemps 18 months ago. I'm nearly over it. I had him at the last leg of a gorgeous Trixie, and unfortunately with less than a week to go he pulled out. I think he would have won that Pertemps. Yeah. He was very impressive in Cheltenham around this time 2 years ago. And I catch and run in Galway. The one thing I'll say is that his jumping in Galway wasn't good. So just that would be in the back of my mind. I think he'll win a big handicap this season. Okay. I think he's 8 turning 9 perhaps, but I think he'll win a big handicap. I just would like to even watch him in running to see how he jumps. But he's definitely still one handicapped. I think his Irish rating is 135. He's in here of 139, so he's got a big chance. But for me, Doyen Quest would be the win bet and a saver on Shoot First. Okay, yeah, Doyen Quest 3-1 with Bet365. Shoot First 7-1. Steve,
I like both Catchem Derry and Gwenny May Boy as horses. So the fact that they're going to run Doyen Quest here, kind of. I always think about this. Would I prefer to be a backer or a layer at 3-1? I prefer to be a backer, definitely. He's £5 well in, and I don't need to speak too much more around it. The one to keep an eye on is Montmoral, not to back for this race, but to keep an eye on how many pounds he gets dropped, because he's now qualified for the Pertemps, and this is now going to be a game of how many pounds can we get dropped before the big day at Cheltenham. I looked up, with Bet365, it's 25-1 for the Pertemps. Yeah. Sometimes in these sort of races, if he finishes 8th, 9th, 10th down the field, some bookmakers may well look at pushing him out, and yeah, you can capitalise on that because his big day is in March. Because he ran in a 4-runner race, wasn't it? Yeah. And literally only 3 finishes. He's beaten 20 lengths and he's qualified, as you say. So he'll end up, he's not much higher already than he was last year, and he'll get dropped a few more pounds between now and March. So he's a big player in the Pertemps for sure, yeah. Okay. Well, I think we're all in agreement that Doyen Quest is a serious candidate for the race. I like Doyen Quest, but I'll also be keeping an eye on the ground for Zane Knights, who goes well at Haydock, obviously won the Stayers Hurdle there back in the springtime. Looked like he might have needed a run at Cheltenham, but actually ran really well behind the Wall Park and Gowell Road. Obviously, Gowell Road ran well on the weekend. And he's 14-1 for the Lucy Wadden team. And she wasn't sure before the race last time whether or not he'd need it. She felt that he would, and he ran a little bit like that. So I thought 14-1. If the ground doesn't go too soft, if it stays, there are supposed to be, I think, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, it's supposed to be sunny. If it stays decent ground, I thought Zane Knights might run okay. Look at some of the Irish racing as well. The Morgiana, it's another exhibition for Stateman. Yeah, I think there's been a bit of support yesterday for Lossiemouth here and Stateman in the Hattons, Grace and Ferias, but I can't see that happening. I'd imagine Stateman will run this weekend. Ballyburn won't run. I think he'll go chasing, and I think Lossiemouth will go for the Hattons, Grace, as we said. Mystical Power will probably go to Newcastle. Brighter days ahead. Don't know whether she'll run, so Stateman could go off 1-5 at the weekend possibly. Yeah, similar sentiments. Yeah, 2 years ago, four-runner race, 2 for Mullins, 2 for Elliott. He went off 1-6, won it 4-9 the year before. Yeah, he's just going to win, like Gavin said. It's going to be interesting to see. I think Gordon Elliott will have a runner, and whether they go for brighter days ahead and say, right, I'm going to see if you are a champion hurdle horse, getting the weight and the benefit of fitness, this would be the time to catch Stateman. But if not, if you back Phil Dudery at 25-1 each way, 2 places, I think this could be a 3-4 runner race. And yeah, I wouldn't be worried about the likes of Daddy Longlegs, Winterfog or Sir Gerhard. So you might be on a bit of an each way one there, but you have no chance of the win part of that bet. The John Durkan, due to take place on Sunday.
a host of good horses in the race. I'm not sure what's going to turn up. But Galopin's in there, Galopin de Champ. Factifile's in there, Fast or Slow, Gaelic Warrior. What are you thinking? What are you seeing? What are you...
I'm guessing that Galopin de Champ won't run because Willie said he missed a bit of work, so I can see him reappearing at Christmas. And I think that will do his Cheltenham Gold Cup chances the world of good to only have 2 runs before Cheltenham this year instead of 3 last year. I don't think Gaelic Warrior or Ilete Tomp will run here. Possibly they might go to the King George. I know the way you're thinking he'll run, but his jumping is not quick enough for 2.5 miles. So to me, it's a 2-horse race between Factifile and Fast or Slow. Since Fast or Slow, he ran this race a couple of years ago when he was having a spin around. But since the Ultima, he's 3 from 3 at the track. Won this last year. Factifile was excellent in the Brown Advisory. This trip would suit him perfectly well. This is the trip that Willie wanted to probably run him last March in. What was the Turners? So it's going to be a brilliant race. I think Fast or Slow deserves more respect than he gets. He's possibly the best jumper of a fence in Ireland, I think. He's really slick over them. And maybe just him, but it'd be a brilliant race to watch.
All right. What are you thinking about that race?
Yeah, Factifile is favourite. I'd be against him based on the number of runners that Willie Mullins has had, the fact that he himself was beaten on his reappearance, Ballyburn was beaten on his reappearance, Galopin de Champ was beaten on their reappearances last year. I would nearly have Fast or Slow as a max bet here. Gavin's gone for his record at the Punchestown since 2023. It's brilliant. He's obviously got those wins over Galopin de Champ. The only thing putting me off him as a max bet is the fact that Derek O'Connor takes over on board other than JJ Slevin. This is nothing against Derek O'Connor. It would be the same if Paul Townend, Jack Kennedy or Harry Cobden is on board. A change in jockey for a top-class horse like this does slightly worry me. But yeah, I love Fast or Slow.
It was interesting, the tactics last April too, wasn't it, with Fast or Slow, that they took on Galopin de Champ. So yeah. I'd imagine here they're going to be up with the Gallop over 2.5 miles anyway.
Yeah, I think he'll win this and they'll supplement him back in for the King George and he'll win that as well.
It was a bit odd that they didn't enter him for the King George, considering Martin Brassil said...
Yes.
I think he forgot to push a button.
Okay.
Possibly.
Genuinely.
Yeah.
I hope the 2 of them turn up, because I'd love to see where they're both at and love to see where Factifile is. Because I suspect that Fast or Slow is going to be more prepared for the day, as Steve's saying, with the way Willie's conducting his operation at the moment. You suspect Factifile is a slow burner building up for a big finish for the season. So, but it'd be hugely interesting and see what it's going to do to the betting for the King George. There's potentially some good racing at Ascot over the weekend. The Ascot Hurdle in particular, I was looking forward to seeing that. Golden Ace might run in that. Blue King Daru, who won the race last year, Django Bay. There's a horse entered in the race called Lucky Place, who I was quite taken by first season actually. Golden Ace beat Lucky Place in a novice. Any thoughts on that or any of the Ascot races?
I thought Golden Ace, I'd worry how keen she'd be over the longer trip, given how keen she is, and especially on her reappearance. Lucky Place was one of the Nicky Henderson horses that actually ran well at the Cheltenham Festival when they were obviously under a cloud, so that could be upgraded. I think Nico's jocked on both him and Django Bay, so you haven't really got any clues on what will run in that. I thought the 1965 chase was interesting. We reviewed the Howden Gold Cup a couple of weeks ago, and I said Jello would go back up in trip, having ran over the minimum trip in the Howden Gold Cup. He's facing Pic D'Orhy. Obviously, Pic D'Orhy is just brilliant at Ascot, but Jello does have the benefit of race fitness over him. The history books will tell you that Pic D'Orhy was an impressive 16-length winner of this race last year. Yeah. But that was the race that fell apart. Shiskin obviously refused to race. Yeah. Manella Drama hated going right-handed, and then Strawfan Jack, even though he was a 40-1 shot that day, genuinely looked a legitimate threat rounding the bend. So Pic D'Orhy may well be vulnerable on his reappearance. Jello won a Grade 2 novice chase at Ascot last season. The track's no concern, the trip's no concern, and yeah, I'd chance him at 9-4 against Pic D'Orhy.
All right. I think Lucky Place has got an entry as well in the novice handicap chase with top weight. So whether he goes for that or the Ascot Hurdle, who knows? I think he's jocked up in both. So let's see. Wherever he goes, I'm interested in what he might do. Any other thoughts for the weekend, Kev?
Not particularly. Golden Ace, to go back to her, I don't think she got a lot of credit for the Mayor's Novice Hurdle. Everybody thought that the 2 Irish lads were looking at each other. They went a bit slow. She came down the near side, showed a gorgeous turn of foot. She has won over 2.5. 2 mile 3 at the weekend, so her getting the allowance, it'll be interesting to see. I think she's got a big chance, but you'd really hope if she's going to be a Mayor's Hurdle contender, she really needs to win at Ascot.
Okay, there's lots of good racing on the weekend. The other horse I was partly interested in was Sans Bruy, who obviously ran well in the JPR 1 Holden Gold Cup, who's lining up against Martata and Isser Deri. would you be interested in Salisbury? Jumped so well and nice comeback.
No, and you'll work out why later. There's also a couple more that I want to go in. Celtic Dino has a couple of entries. He's in the introductory hurdle at Ascot on Friday, and also in the Grade 2 Newton Novices hurdle at Haydock on Saturday. He was really impressive at Wincanton on his hurdling debut, so whichever race he goes in, I'll be a fan of Celtic Dino. And just a race to watch, and it's not going to happen because obviously they're not all going to get declared. But at Tipperary on Friday, there's a 3-mile beginner's chase. Currently entered in that, you have Stella Story, Dancing City, Sam Majest, My Trump Card, and High Class Hero. If Willie Mullins runs one and Gordon Elliott runs one, you've got a good race to watch on Friday afternoon. Okay.
And have we talked about your Arkle horse at all?
No, you missed over it. There were 2 JP horses that I liked running over in Ireland. Iranzi was one that won the maiden hurdle at Punchestown on Friday, 25-1. He was finished 3rd behind Firefox and Ballyburn in that maiden hurdle last year. They kept him for novice status. His 25-1 for the Supreme. But the one bet I've had from this weekend is down memory lane in the Arkle. I was really, really impressed with him. He beat King of Kingsfield and Nürburgring in a beginner's chase. Both of those had the benefit of race fitness. He was sent off 7-1 for this, despite being the choice of Mark Walsh. This makes it 4 from 5 in his career. His only defeat came in that heavy ground race that Caldwell Potter ran in. They've been patient with him. Yeah, I thought 25-1 was a massive price for the Arkle, given that this would be a Grade 2, Grade 1 over in the UK any day of the week with King of Kingsfield, Nürburgring and Birdie or Bust. Okay. So I have backed,
Well, that was a funny race. I watched it back last night actually, and the ride on King of Kingsfield was a strange one, I thought. That was the only thing about down memory lane. You seemed to take a pull, Jack Kennedy on
and then made a mistake at the last.
And then he made a mistake at the last. And slightly.
Yeah, look, he's a bridle merchant, and what's going to happen is Gordon is brilliant at targeting a race once he knows that they're not a Grade 1 horse, and afterwards he said to Gary O'Brien with a smile, he could be one for the Grand Annual. So he'll win a week beginner's chase. He might get beat once or twice in Grade 1s, etc. I think he'll go off favourite for the Grand Annual, but I still think he'll get found out up that hill. He travels brilliantly.
Yeah, he did. He travelled. He was best traveller into the home straight.
But not for the first time, and he doesn't find a lot. Yeah. So I could see him going off favourite for the Grand Annual, but I don't think he'll win it.
All right. Okay, I think that's it. Unless there's anything else that you want to mention for the week ahead, other than your best bet, which we're saving for the end of the show.
Okay.
Yeah.
No, that's it.
Okay, great. That's a look ahead to the week that's coming up. But before we get into our best bets of the weekend, just to let you know of a free-to-play 6 horses challenge. It is available every weekend with prize pools available for 5 and 4 correct predictions, as well as a jackpot for all 6. T's and C's apply. And now it's time for the best bets of the weekend, and Gavin is going to go first.
We'll go for Diane Quest. Keep it simple. £5
okay.
Well in. Wins last week. Lots to like. If they claim, they claim. That's no harm. So I think around 3-1, I think that's okay.
Diane Quest to back up his win at Cheltenham at Haydock on Saturday for Gavin. Steve?
Yeah, mine will be Martyr Tour in the Hurst Park Handicap Chase 320 at Ascot. He's won his last 4 races. 2 of those have come over this course and distance. In none of those 4 wins has he been sent off favourite. I thought a £6 rise from the handicapper for his latest victory was very, very fair. The second and third, Isaderi and Cotmask, get a swing in the weights, but the handicapper definitely hasn't got a grip, as shown by the fact that he's now bidding for a 5-timer, and I thought the 2-1 with Bet365 was perfectly fair.
Okay, so Martyr to Ascot on Saturday, Diane Quest with Gavin at Haydock on Saturday. I'm going to Ascot on Friday for my best selection, and that's Al Nalam, who runs in the handicap hurdle. He had the hood on for the first time when he ran behind Willie the Builder at Wetherby, and I think he was unlucky not to beat Willie the Builder, who's also in the field. I've looked through the race. I don't think it's that strong a field. 1 or 2 horses will thin out as well. Others have got entries and have run recently. And Al Nalam, who is a pretty smart horse, or potentially smart horse on the flat, he bolted up a couple of times at Kelso. And I thought with the hood on, he was going to beat Willie the Builder. Just at the last flight of hurdles, Willie the Builder went one way, Al Nalam went the other, and he just pecked and he went down on his nose and he got up and he nearly got back up to win. And now that was off level weights. I think he's getting weight from Willie the Builder on the weekend. So I thought Al Nalam would be the play on Friday. So just to recap, Gavin's going for Diane Quest at Haydock on Saturday. Steve's going for Martyr at Ascot also on Saturday. And I'm going for Al Nalam at Ascot on Friday. And that is it for the week ahead. But do we have some anti-post action from you to look ahead to, Gav?
Yeah, I'll give you one. I just think he's decent value. Is in the pocket for the Arkle. I'm going to take you on, Steve. Although I accept the 25-1 that you mentioned for down memory lane is good value. But in the pocket for the Arkle is 10-1 with Bet365. They're a standout price. Very good novice hurdler, 4th in the Supreme, wins the Grade 1 in Aintree. Then had a very nice tender introduction to chasing in Navan behind Facile Vega a year ago. Had an injury, reappears in Wexford, wins by 15 lengths, jumps brilliantly, and beats Far and Glory, who won since. So the form is good. I think he's always looked like a chaser. He's in the right yard, and a 10-1 for the Arkle. I think he's good value.
2 selections for the Arkle today in the pocket for Gavin, down memory lane for Steve, and I'm sure somewhere along the line someone will still believe that Le de Sud's going to do it. So we're covered. All bases covered for the Arkle. Thank you very much. What's the rest of the week got in store for you, Gav?
Heading to the airport now, and I'm going to buy a scone and a smoothie.
Not at the airport. You're not going to buy that. Not with that.
Well, maybe a scone then.
Just a scone. Out and about this week, Steve? You going racing at all?
Not racing. No. I'm on parenting duty for the rest of the week.
Good man. Good man. And just a few more days to go.
Well, 11 days. Not that my wife's counting or anything.
Have we had how we can sponsor you?
No, I'll put it in the description this week. I forgot last week.
Please.
Here you go. There you go.
Good man.
What a moment. I feel like I've contributed as well.
That took 4 hours to earn that tenner.
To be fair, it took about 2
3
hours. Thank you very much for watching this episode of Racing Weekly, brought to you by Oddschecker in association with Bet365. Thank you to Steve and to Gavin for coming over from Ireland, taking my money and heading back home with it. I hope you've enjoyed the show as well. As always, if you like what you heard or seen on this or any of our previous episodes, then leave a kind comment in the Apple Podcast review or in the comment section on YouTube. Next week we'll be back. Gary O'Brien's coming over, not to take my money, hopefully, but to look ahead to the Winter Festival at Newbury and also the Fighting Fifth Hurdle card at Newcastle. But for now, from Steve, Gavin, myself and the Racing Weekly team, bye-bye.